what I discovered is that the startup founders did not have understanding of brand positioning framework as a very focused and specific tool. The brand positioning template is specifically about how do I sell this particular thing to this particular person. And so what would happen is they all suffer, many brands suffer from the yes and also problem. The and also problem is it's female founded, and also it's low in sugar, and also we source from Canada, and also the price is great, and also you can find me at Walmart, and also the chocolate chips are 33% bigger. Before you know it, you got 2 pages of what is this brand. Nobody has time for that. There's no consumer that's going to sit and read all of that.
Welcome to the eCommerce Marketing Podcast, the highly rated digital marketing podcast that provides weekly digital marketing tips and strategies from some of the world's top digital marketers and e-commerce entrepreneurs that will help you take your digital marketing to the next level. Sit back and enjoy this power-packed episode hosted by Arlen Robinson, who is an e-commerce entrepreneur and digital marketing expert with over 20 years of experience. Hey, e-commerce marketing podcast listener. Are you looking to increase traffic and sales to your website? You can do this by launching your own affiliate program. Just visit getosi.com and sign up for a free trial today. That's getosi.com. Now get ready to hear from your e-commerce marketing expert of the week as they drill down to give you details on marketing strategies that can help grow your business.
Welcome back to the e-commerce marketing podcast, everyone. My name is Arlen. I'm your host, and today we've got a very special guest, Kathy Guzman Galloway, who's an accomplished strategist, consumer packaged goods industry veteran, and industry positioning expert. She's got over 20 years of CPG experience, and she's known as the Clarity Wizard. Has also helped hundreds of organizations increase revenue and decrease risk by clarifying their brand positioning. She's worked with brands like Nature Made, Lay's, and Chiki Chiki Boom Boom, among others, to turn strategy and data into action. Kathy's worked with numerous CPG brands on their positioning while also sharing her knowledge and frameworks to startup founders with 7-Eleven brands, with Heart Program, REI Plus, Founded Outdoors BIPOC Accelerator, and as a master teacher for SKU, the CPG Accelerator. Welcome to the podcast, Kathy.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. And thank you for joining us. Really excited to talk to you because, as I indicated in the intro, you've definitely worked with some really top brands. I think some of the brands you work with are almost like a who's who of top shelf grocery store brands that you see all the time when you're in the grocery store, which definitely says a lot to be able to work with those brands and create strategies for those brands because, some of these brands have been around for decades upon decades, dominating grocery shelf space. And so that's a big deal to be able to help them do that.
Absolutely. Those big brands are fun to work with, but they've got their challenges.
Yes. True. That's true. It's business is not easy, no matter what size you are. So it's always challenging, but that's what keeps our jobs interesting, and that's all part of the fun. Well, today we're going to be talking specifically about brand positioning, why it matters, and what is the blueprint for e-commerce businesses with regards to brand positioning. But before we get into all of that, why don't you tell us a little bit more about your background and specifically how you got into what you're doing today?
So my background is that I started in the world of marketing because I participated as a cross-functional team member on the launch team for Boost Mobile. It's a cell phone company. Wow. And I was working for Nextel, later became Sprint at the time, and I was in operations, and I saw the marketer who was leading the launch and just talking about strategy and consumers and insights, and I was like, this that just looks so cool. I would love to do that job. And that led me to business school. I came to Texas, to University of Texas at Austin to get my MBA, and then was swooped up by PepsiCo. And so PepsiCo was really where my true brand management marketing career really started and really flourished. And it was the experience that sort of set up the foundation for all of the knowledge that I still use day to day. So it was really, really great experience to have that classical brand management training. I worked then for a small independent startup organization in the beauty space. Actually, you probably heard of the brand Cantu, hair care brand. So I was the brand manager for that brand for a good while with them. I worked in the dairy space, and then finally decided that I wanted to start my own business. I, at the time, had young girls. My girls are teenagers now. They were young, and I just wanted flexibility. And I didn't know at the time that that was going to lead me to this career path that I certainly couldn't have dreamt of, and that I'm thrilled that I have as a brand positioning expert. And in the last few years, I've continued to hone this expertise in brand positioning till eventually decided to turn what was just a strategy consulting business into a brand positioning consultancy. And that's really what we do at the Clarity Wizard, is we help our clients make sure that they are talking to their ideal audience with information that is relevant and compelling to them. So you want to know, who are you talking to? What are you saying to them? And why should they care? And that is the basis for everything else you'll do on your business. And so it's such an important and strategic component of having a successful business that that it feels really impactful to me. And the work I do with my clients, they also feel so empowered and energized when they have that clarity. It just really makes the world of a difference. So I'm grateful that I get to do this work.
Yeah, that's some awesome stuff, and I see why you're called the Clarity Wizard, and that's a great name as well, because that's in these business world, this current business world, where so many things are out there online, and there's so much competition. Clarity is really key. You've got to have the clear messaging. And just a quick question for you. You worked, like you mentioned, for PepsiCo for a while, and you was working some really high profile position. I'm curious, as far as, you mentioned, of course, you had young daughters at the time. You wanted a little bit more flexibility to be able to raise them. Did you have a particular model as far as being an entrepreneur, someone that you kind of looked forward as a mentor, so to speak, or someone that you may observed as from the far that kind of slightly, guided you towards an entrepreneurial?
That's such a good question. I don't know. I've been on quite a few podcasts lately. I don't know if anyone's asked me that question just in that way. And it's interesting in that that was 11, 12 years ago now when I was starting to do that. And today, when you go on social media, you can't scroll past five things in your feed without seeing someone talk about starting your own business, being your own boss, being independent. That really wasn't a thing back there. People really weren't talking about that. And because I've always known that I had no intention or interest in really establishing a large organization. This company's never going to have 50 employees, 100 employees. It really just is not part of what my vision is. So when I started, I was just looking for some contract work. It was such a simple way to think about. I just want to stop being a full-time employee, and I just want to take control over my time and my career path and what success looks like. I didn't want others sort of defining that. But what is interesting about that is that the path found me in that, and now I do so much to try to coach and mentor others who are trying to go into consulting, and particularly women, to say, just don't do it the way I did it. I could have gotten here a lot faster. I just didn't know what the objective was, and I didn't know how to get to that path. But the path found me. What I mean by that is that what I now know is my zone of genius sort of discovered me. I didn't discover it. And a lot of that was other people telling me what my zone of genius is, which is such a powerful way, honestly, to get to it, that I'm not making it up myself. I'm getting others giving me the feedback saying, hey, you're really good at this. You're really good at this. This is what you should focus on. And then being in a position where my career just naturally lent to that. So I take a lot of gratitude. I have a lot of gratitude for being able to fall into that in a way that I think most people don't get a chance to do that. So no, I know no blueprint, no model, just out in the world trying to make a paycheck, trying to survive. And the world, the universe had a plan for me, and this is why I'm here.
Yeah, that's good stuff. And I see that all the time where you're doing work, you're just down there doing the best that you can, and then what you're doing gets validated by the people that you're around and say, you're really good at doing that. And then it's just kind of one thing leads to the next. You're saying, wait a minute, okay, because when you have your head to the grind and you're head down, you're just doing the best that you can. A lot of times you don't necessarily self-evaluate what it is that you're doing from a larger scope. It takes other people to kind of see, really what you're doing and your value and what you can bring to the table. So that's really good stuff that, you're able to kind of get into it organically. Well, we've of course alluded to the fact that brand positioning is key, in this market, specifically for e-commerce businesses. So what I would like to start off with is, if you can explain why brand positioning is specifically so critical for e-commerce businesses today.
And the truth is, it's actually so critical for just about anything. I think that one of the things that's so fantastic about brand positioning as a concept, as a principle, is that when we break down, take the fancy words out of it, and we just talk about what it is, everyone can understand it and resonate with it, regardless of the industry or what you're, even as an individual, as a person, right? Like what it is to have a personal brand. Brand positioning is simply, who is my audience? Who am I talking to? What is it that I am selling to them or saying to them or giving them, or what information I am providing, and why should they care? And to be more specific around it, the who is my audience is important because the context of that person's life, education, state of mind, where they live, what things they are doing with their days, what their personal goals are. This context that kind of paints a story about a person dictates how you can and should speak to them and what they need, right? Which is where we get into providing some sort of solution to a problem they have. And again, this is true for anyone and everyone. And the e-com side, because unlike in brick and mortar, where you have such a stronger opportunity to interact with this person, right? You can just walk into any Walmart, and if you sell toothpaste, hang out in the toothpaste aisle, you're going to wind up meeting somebody, right? An e-com, you just don't have that. It really is a black box of people. Like you're just staring at a computer. I see numbers, but who are these people? Who knows? That becomes so important. It's actually one of the most important parts for e-com as an industry, is the leaning into the who is this person. The second piece, which is what am I saying, selling, offering, is about understanding your brand and your position in the marketplace. Literally, what are you? Are you just a toothpaste, or are you a dental hygiene brand, or are you about natural offerings? What is it that you bring to the table that helps you stand out from the competition and feels relevant to that audience? And then the final piece is, why should they care? This is where those two pieces really come together to say, of all the things I could say about my product, what are going to be the most important things to really be relevant and compelling to this audience? I could just, regurgitate all of the 27 features and benefits of my product. That's probably not going to get you anywhere, right? When you're selling me a thing, I really just care about what I care about. I don't care about all the other things. And that is the power of brand positioning, is that it helps you to make strategic choices about the most important elements of your business, strategic choices about who you can talk to. Because in order for you to define who you're talking to, you also need to define who you're not talking to, which is equally as important.
Yes.
And it helps you look inward to really understand as a brand, what is the thing that's going to make us stand out in this marketplace? Having that kind of clarity where all of the pieces are sort of laid out in front of you very clearly makes all the other work that much easier, particularly for e-com, where you are often engaging with an outside party, an agency helping you with advertising, which is such a big component of the e-com world. You need this starting point, this sort of foundation of what the brand is and what we stand for, to make sure that everything you get back from them is consistent, is cohesive, is really building on the same story. And in e-com, I'm sure we'll get into this a little bit, there tends to be a feeling that brand is not as important, when in actuality, while branding, as we see in this flashy way of the world, it may not be as important. You don't need to be a Coca-Cola to win in e-com, because you can win in really small niche spaces. But what you do need is to have an identity, a voice, a product, a brand promise that is consistent, that the consumer is interested in, that you are able to back up with your features and your benefits. And so that brand positioning is critical, regardless of how big or small your brand is.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It really, I think, comes down to really understanding what your brand is about, what your values are, the core values, the mission statement of the brand. What are the things that you are for? And I think unless you really totally know that, you almost shouldn't put yourself out there in a sense. Because I have this conversation with a lot of our customers with our affiliate software, because a lot of our customers are reaching out to affiliates and influencers that are representing their brand. And so I've done webinars, and one of the things that I talk about is how to find those right influencers that are going to represent your brand and promote it on social channels. And I think the key thing there is, because you're relying on some of these outside people, you've got to make sure you know what you're about, and that you find people that are aligned with your same messaging. Because the last thing you want is you have a partner, an affiliate, an influencer that is promoting something or has a particular lifestyle that your brand does not really condone, or doesn't really agree with, so to speak. And so it can be very damaging. So I think, it's really crucial, like you said, that you really understand, who you are as a brand, before kind of getting out there and then doing all of this advertising.
Yeah, and I'll build on that to say, and you touched on values and mission, and I want to talk a little bit about that, in that I've been doing brand positioning the way I just described it for 20 plus years. But in the last 3, 4, 5 years, I've spent a lot more time with startup founders, and particularly folks who came to the industry without any knowledge of the industry, and really, more importantly, not a lot of knowledge about marketing and sort of the fundamentals of marketing. I used to be an accountant. Now I'm selling iced tea. I used to be a lawyer, and now I'm selling, I don't know, bras, custom bras or something. And what I learned in working with tens and tens of them, particularly that organization you mentioned in the intro, SKU, which is the CPG Accelerator, through that organization alone, I've worked with 40, 50 brands. What I discovered is that the startup founders did not have an understanding of the brand positioning framework as a very focused and specific tool, and that the brand positioning template is specifically about how do I sell this particular thing to this particular person. And so what would happen is many brands suffer from the yes and problem. I'm sorry, it's the and also problem. The and also problem is it's female founded, and also it's low in sugar, and also we source from Canada, and also the price is great, and also you can find me at Walmart, and also the chocolate chips are 33% bigger, and also before you know it, you got 2 pages of what is this brand. Yeah, nobody has
That's
time for
true.
that. There's no consumer that's going to
Mhm.
sit and read all of that. And what I
Very true.
learned is that there are pieces of the brand for startup brands that are new, which is not quite the same problem for more of the established brands that I've spent my career working on because they've been around for 50, 100 years, is that we need to clarify some of those other components and give them a place to live. Because the fact that it's
Mhm.
female owned or that your chocolate chips are 33% bigger, that's important. It's just important in a
Yes.
time and in a place. And this is where I developed a broader framework that includes brand positioning to capture things like brand purpose. There's 5 elements. There's brand purpose, brand mission, brand positioning that we just talked about, brand values, and then brand identity. And those 4
Mhm.
components hold all of the stuff that we want to say about our brand and how we live and how we operate in the world that should remain consistent no matter how the consumer interacts with us. So no matter where they
Okay.
see you, no matter what they're looking at, they always are getting the same storyline. And so separating all of that made brand positioning that much easier to do, because now we don't have to worry about this mission that you have is so important. We give 10% back. We got to talk about that.
Mhm.
When someone is sitting in, I like to say this a lot, you're sitting in front of a shelf and you're sweating and you need something to drink because you're thirsty. I
Mhm.
don't care that you give
Yep.
10% back to anybody. I just want to drink something cold and delicious, period, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
But when
Exactly.
I've completed my drink and I feel more refreshed and I have a second and I get to look at the back of the package, or I decide to find you on Instagram, or I, look up the founder, now there's room for more of the storytelling. And so what you were talking about a minute
Okay.
ago is that there is a whole brand story. We just have to be clear about
Okay.
what the parts are so that it's easier to talk
Mhm.
about each individual one as well as all of them together.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. That makes a lot of sense. It's like what you said, there's a time and place for everything and for revealing certain
Right.
information. And I can imagine from you working from some of those top brands. And you can just think about it when you're going to the store and you're looking at these top brands on the shelf. Yeah, it's they're not covering that
Right.
whole story. Yes, there may be the products may be responsibly sourced, they may be organic, they may be low sugar, all of that. They're just picking a few things that are going to draw the customer in.
Exactly.
They're not going to review all of it. And I understand where smaller brands are coming from. They they want to put all of that out there. They stand behind it. It may be woman owned. They may be all of those things. But like you said, there's certain times and
Mhm.
places where you want to reveal that. You don't want to overwhelm the consumer with too
Yeah.
much information at that point. So I think, like you said, social media is a good place to kind of build your story more, or even on the
Right.
website. Now, so for e-commerce startups, what would you say are the first steps that they should take to just start establishing brand positioning, and how can they maintain that as they
So
grow?
if the brand is already selling and already out in the marketplace, you already have a brand positioning. Either
Okay.
you decided it and you executed it, or the market is dictating your brand positioning, right? That everything is out
Hmm.
there, it already has a position. Whether you control it or not, that's a different story. And so that's where I would start. You're an existing brand, you're out in the world. I have a template that I use, I'll make available to your audience. We'll talk in a minute about where they can find that. That is the brand positioning template,
Okay.
and helps them articulate each of the points of brand positioning. And I would go through that. I would go through it and try to fill it out. And the job to be done in checking both the strength and the gaps in your brand positioning is, one, check to see if all of the pieces of the puzzle are all aligning with each other. So if you are
Okay.
talking about an audience and saying this is someone who they work hard on their budget and they have a lot of people that they're responsible for and they're really busy, but then you're talking about a product that's a premium priced product where this is a premium ingredients, that may not connect, right? How do we make sure that the person the problem they have, and the thing you are offering are all laddered back to each other. The next point would be that you could provide this description of the person, the audience, to someone else, and they can imagine who this person is. Oh, I know what kind of person that is. I'm not imagining a person, because there are actually quite a few of us that would fit into that, but I get who you're talking about, and I get why they would want this product. It should feel intuitive in that way. And then maybe the last thing I'd offer, which actually refers back to some of your last comments a moment ago, is around the brand promise. In the positioning template, you are defining the brand promise, which is your ultimate offer. I'll give you an easy example of that is Tide. If it has to be clean, it has to be Tide. Tide's brand promise is your clothes are always going to be clean. No matter what, you get your clothes clean. That's their promise. So you need to define what is that promise that's always going to be true when you interact with my brand, followed by the 3 prioritized reasons why they should believe you. They believe me because if I'm Tide, I have 80 years of R&D. I have tested this to infinity and beyond. I've developed this in all the different shapes and sizes of packaging that you could need, right? These are the reasons why you can believe that if you need your clothes to be clean, they're always going to be clean. And that brand promise and developing that is often the trickiest part, because what you are doing in that is boiling all the things down to one phrase somewhere between 3 words and 6 or 7 words. And that's really, really hard to do. It is an iterative process. You have to start and then edit and edit and edit and revisit, share it with other people who know your business, know your brand. And even over time, to your point earlier, yes, I've worked with brands that are really long in the tooth, but they're still working on positioning because the consumer always changes, the market always changes. And so that brand promise will evolve over time, but it makes everything else that much clearer. If you are Tide and everything I do is about getting your clothes clean, I'm not going to introduce scents. I don't need to focus on scents because that's not what we're about. That's what the gain is about. Gain is about scents. Let them do that. My focus is making sure your clothes are clean. And that provides the kind of clarity that you were referring to with like influencers. I need to know that they're on the same page with me. They need to understand what I'm selling and what my brand promise is, and it needs to ladder back to that. And those are the 3 places that I would focus your audience to work on when it comes to brand positioning.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's really helpful. One thing that I would say is probably pretty challenging, and I know you encounter this, like you said, coming up with that brand promise. I know it's probably difficult because as a brand, there's so many things that you want to promise to your end customer. A lot of times it's hard to condense that down into just one thing, because I'm sure, like every product, it meets multiple needs for multiple people, and you want to try to cover everything. So I can imagine there's a lot of back and forth sessions that you have with startups to try to whittle that down into that one specific brand promise. But I think that it's very important if you are able to get that down, you know who your target market is. And you even mentioned making it's almost like you're creating the particular customer avatar, and everybody's clear on what that is. And so even if your particular potential customers come across your brand message or promise, they find out it's not for them. They may know somebody like, oh, okay, I see. It's not quite for me, but my friend over here, he would be a good fit for that.
And I think an e-commerce audience is likely the one who most likely would resonate with the idea that targeting the wrong person is so expensive. Like, what a waste of time and money. So when I'm teaching about identifying your consumer or your customer target, the way I describe that person, the ideal audience, is the person who you need to say and do the very least for them to want to buy. So if this person saw the ad, they're immediately going to click the ad. They're immediately going to go to the product page, put it in the cart, and go right to the cart and pay for it right then and there. No coupon code, no research, no competitive. Oh, is this also on Amazon? Nothing. That is your ideal target audience. And that person is typically, particularly in e-commerce, we'll talk about that person with a lot of demographics around it. Or there's women who are 35 to 55, and she, high income, highly educated. But the reality is that there are a lot of people who would fit that are not necessarily associated with each other based on demographics, but instead psychographics. And so what you're looking for are more, what kind of a person is it? Someone who is ambitious, somebody who's overworked, somebody who, believes in women's rights, somebody who believes in travel, somebody who prioritizes their family. What are those things about this person that make them our ideal audience? And once you have that kind of big picture of who this person is, now you're in a better position to slice this down to infinity and beyond, right? Because a lot of what we do in digital marketing is about finding the right person and finding these niche pockets. But all of those people still need to ladder up to a same sort of persona or ideal of who this consumer is. And that is often the hardest work for e-com brands, is to pull back away from the 12 avatars that I'm advertising against and pull back up to like, okay, but who's my master core consumer? But it's so helpful to have that clarity, really.
Yeah, it is for sure. It is for sure. But, I know it's a little scary for brands to do that. They don't want to, a lot of times I know they feel like they're going to miss out, or if they don't get the right, then, they're missing the mark. But it's still very important. That's why it's something that they should not take lightly, and they should spend a lot of time figuring that out. That's kind of what I've come to understand. Well, Kathy, as we get ready to wrap things up, I wanted to see what you thought about this whole world of brand positioning and CPG brands. What would you say are some of the cool or latest trends that businesses you think should jump and at least try, in order to stay trendy and relevant?
I actually would talk about it through a different lens. I'm not a huge fan of trendiness and sort of following trends, in that they're so broad strokes that really the people who should focus on that are going to be the Fortune 500s of the world, right? Like they're going to lead the path on some of those. For some of the rest of the market and the majority of brands, it's the same idea as a trend, but I would pivot you to make it a little more, to sort of narrow the focus a little, in that instead of thinking of it as a trend, is what are the things that my audience is doing that maybe is changing or different in the way they're talking or thinking about things that I need to care about. And in that way, I think one of the things that the e-com brands should work to do a better job of, in order to see that reflected in the marketplace, is spend more time really learning about the person rather than just their behaviors online, right? We often will take a lot of insight from what this person is clicking on and what websites they visit and all of that, but it's such a sliver of a piece of a person, right? Even yourself, if you imagine someone went through your history on your phone and they would come up with a picture in their mind of who you are, that just may not be a full encompassing view of that person. And so in that way, I would focus on just learning more about them in a more qualitative way, where it's really a lot more about interviewing and understanding the why behind the way people move. And related to that is the issue that consumers are getting so smart. They know what brands are. They know what brands are. They know what branding is. They know what strategies are. Like everyone's talking about personal branding. And so finding ways to be authentic, even as a brand, is the other piece of the puzzle, particularly for e-com brands, that you miss out on the face-to-face experience, right? There's no brick and mortar for me to go and pick up this product and look at it for many e-com brands to look at it and have that personal connection to that product. And so finding a way to bring that personality to the forefront, even on an Amazon listing, which couldn't be more devoid of, sorry about that. Even in an Amazon listing, it couldn't be more devoid of personality, if you will. How do I do that? How do I create an experience that feels more like connecting with someone? That would be my advice.
Yes. Great. Well, very, very well said. So the two key things there are really getting to understand and know your customer beyond the analytics. Because like you said, that's just a small snapshot of what their activity is at certain points, but it doesn't really encompass, who they are as a person. And then secondly, being authentic as a brand and letting that shine through, because like you said, people are so educated these days about branding, positioning, with AI, the answers to anything is just available just with a few keystrokes. So people are a lot smarter. So I think they want to see things that are going to differentiate your brand from the next brand. And so a lot of that has to do with the mission that you have. What do you stand behind? And I think you have to really be authentic with people and just put that out there. It's a little bit different than it was in the past. I think more people now appreciate that over a lot, because I know I do when I'm looking at different e-commerce brand sites that I've come across for the first time. The first things I always look at is I go to their about page and I'm trying to figure out what's the founder, why did they develop this, who are they, what are the things that they do before they launched the brand, stuff like that. And what
how do their values match mine? There's a lot of that.
Exactly. Those are key things. Well, Kathy, this has been an awesome conversation. We really appreciate having you on. I've learned a ton. I know our listeners and viewers have as well. But lastly, before we do let you go, I always like our audience, our listeners and viewers to get to know you a little bit better. So if you don't mind sharing one closing fun fact about yourself that you think we'd be interested to know.
I would say I am obsessed with beaches. I just talk too much about it. Could be because I've spent the last 20 some odd years living in Dallas, so I'm landlocked, and so every minute I can spend at a beach is my dream come true. And I just look forward to when we're empty nesters and I can make it out to the world and find a beach to live on. So I'm a beach obsessed. So if you have any event where you need a speaker and there is a beach, please call me. I will be there.
I'll definitely keep that in mind. I'm in Florida, as you know. I'm in the middle of the state, but I'm only about 45 minutes from a beach. I've been to a ton of beaches, but I can definitely make some great recommendations for you and your family. But if you've ever been to Siesta Key Beach, I'm not sure if you've been there. It's been rated one of the top beaches in the world on several lists for several years. Siesta Key. It's on the west coast of Florida, near not too far from Tampa and Sarasota. It's right actually near Sarasota. But nice. yes, it's one of my parents' favorite beaches. When they come to visit, they go there. So put that on your list. Well, Kathy, thank you for sharing. I really appreciate that. Lastly, before we do let you go, what would be the best way for our audience to reach out to you if they want to pick your brain any more about brand positioning for their e-commerce
Yes,
companies?
I'd love to connect with everybody on LinkedIn. I accept all connections. To me, that's the square where we all get to meet each other. So please do that. And I spoke earlier about the brand positioning template that I'll make available to your audience, and they can find that on my website, theclaritywizard.com/podcast. And that template will be there for them. If, like you said, if they need help filling it out or have questions about how do we do research, how do we create positioning statement, how do I write my brand promise, please reach out and be happy to help.
Okay, well, that's awesome. Well, we'll be sure to have those links in the show notes and the podcast summary so people can get access to that. And thank you for offering that. We really appreciate that. I definitely encourage brands to download that template and see if that could be a benefit to them. Well, Kathy, this has been awesome. I definitely had a pleasure speaking with you. We really appreciate having you on the e-commerce marketing podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the e-commerce marketing podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and share it with everyone you know. Are you looking to take your digital marketing to the next level but are tired of weeding through countless YouTube videos with unproven and untrusted marketing strategies? Well, we have the answer for you. The More Sales Every Month online digital marketing course. In this information-packed course, you will learn effective keyword research, link building, content marketing, and much more to attract and convert your site visitors into paying customers. Just go to moresaleseverymonth.com and sign up today for a low one-time fee. In addition to this power-packed course, if you would like to get access to a growing repository of digital marketing articles, PDFs, and ebooks, check out getosi.com/resources and opt in to get full access to our library of priceless marketing information to help you take your digital marketing to the next level.